It is Sunday school. Welcome to Sunday school. Everybody take your seats and quiet down. Sit very politely. What you're seeing here, okay, Angels of the Shemhamferish, okay, and I'll get you a little closer up view of this document. You've probably seen this beautiful color chart of the 72 angels of the Shemhamferish and how their names were determined, okay, and how they apply to the decans of the zodiac, okay, and how they are applied to the 36 small or the 36 small cards of the tarot, and how they are attributed to the 72 spirits of the Goetia. One for day, one for night. Okay. Now, this, you already have this chart if you have the first edition, because it was a tip-in, okay, of the first edition of Angels, Demons, and Gods of the New Millennium. And there's a beautiful picture here by Jody Breedlove, the very talented Jody Breedlove. There's the angel part. And then here's the idea of the demon part. See, she's got cloven hooves there, and she's got antlery kind of horns. Angels, Demons, and Gods, the New Millennium, Musings on Modern Magic. Now, if you've got a newer edition of this book and don't have that beautiful chart tip in because the publisher decided it was just too damn expensive to continue to include that, if now you're on your honor, if you have the book, because I want you to buy the book, okay? I want this book to stay in print. I wrote it a long time ago, 27 years ago, okay? I want it to remain in print, and it'll only remain in print if people buy the book. It's a good book. I'm going to talk about it today. And if you buy the book and leave me a note here on either the YouTube comment section or the Facebook comment section, I will send you a beautiful PDF file for that chart, or a JPEG, and in other words, a good reproduction that you can either put on your computer or color print out yourself. But please, only if you've bought the book and been kind enough to help me keep this book in print. It's from the good folks at Weiser. Okay, the publication date is 1997, but obviously I was writing it closer to 30 years ago, and I'm going to share a couple things. The only reason I even dug this out was because yesterday we were talking about the Qabalah of Popeye, or Popeye the Qabalah man, and I had it out in preparation for that book, but I'm just going to give you a little teaser here. Angels, Demons, and Gods of the New Millennium. Obviously, when I wrote this, the New Millennium hadn't even started yet. Musings on Modern Magic. And this is, obviously, I'm in the habit of doing this. I quote myself. The gods of one age become the devils of the age to follow. The priests look forward to the coming age and see only the end of the world. Okay. And just for your, there's 7 chapters. Confession, Qabalah, Zen of the West, is this kosher? Chapter 3, the Emerald Tablet of Hermes and the Invocation of the Holy Guardian Angel. Chapter 4, the Precession of the Equinoxes and the Metamorphosis of the Gods. Passing the Pylons. It's about the Egyptian Book of the Dead and astral projection and the death experience. Devil Be My God. And Demons Are Our Friends. Again, if that sounds interesting to you, the book is Angels, Demons, and Gods of the New Millennium, Musings on Modern Magic by Weiser. Is that enough of a plug? Want more plug? Okay, hang on for a second. I'm going to explain what this book's about. My introduction to occultism came in 1996 when my brother Mark loaned me 3 small books by Yogi Ramacharaka. That's William Walker Atkinson. I've since introduced a couple of his books in publication. The first, the Hindu Yogi Practical Water Cure, introduced me to the unspeakable horrors that lie putrefying in my intestinal tract. I immediately turned vegetarian and embarked upon a frantic quest for a high colonic. The second book, Science of Breath, taught me the fundamentals of pranayama. And the third, 14 Lessons in Yogi Philosophy, was and still is the finest introduction to Oriental occultism ever written. Several of these books were originally published at the turn of the century as correspondence courses. Each week, subscribers received a new lesson in the mail and had 7 days to meditate upon the material and embark upon the outlined practices. If the student applied himself or herself to the program, at the end of the monograph series, they would find themselves with clean colons, clean lungs, and a healthy respect for the spiritual sciences of the East. Ramacharaka's writing style was smooth and down to earth. He never talked down to the reader. He seemed to be at all times very conscious of who was reading his material and managed to convey exotic concepts with candor and a complete lack of pretense. Members of our little Oregon hippie community were so impressed by the writings of Yogi Ramacharaka and his painless teaching method that we proudly dubbed ourselves the class of '04, because Yogi Ramacharaka's correspondence course was, I address you as the class of '04 or 1904. Now, this is before I got into Crowley and knew about 1904 and the Book of the Law and all of that. It's just weird, okay? We proudly dubbed ourselves the class of '04, the name by which Ramacharaka addressed the recipients of the 1904 14 Lesson series. To distinguish ourselves from our carnivorous neighbors, we even designed a red flag in the shape of an enema bag with the numbers '04 emblazoned on the side. Years later, I would study the weekly monographs of several modern mystery schools and found that I still resonated positively to this teaching method. With Angels, Demons, and Gods of the New Millennium, I have not presumed to copy Ramacharaka's unique style. I've nevertheless tried to make each chapter a self-contained entity, a standalone essay on one of 7 topics I believe are critical to the understanding of modern magic. This is not to say that I don't hope that the book will be read and digested as a unified opus, but it's my sincere hope that readers will take a little time to let the magic of each chapter prepare them for the one to follow. Okay. And as I was looking at this book, I have an acknowledgement section, and it's interesting to know what my list of acknowledgements were in probably 1995 when I was preparing this book. And I see several of my dear friends who are no longer with us, and many who are, and some of whom are probably watching even as we speak. Just for your, okay. Now, to what I was in the chapter, the Kabbalah Zen of the West, and this is what got me started vis-a-vis yesterday's discussion. I'm starting right in the middle. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's really long. As a matter of fact, it should be a booklet in itself, Kabbalah Zen of the West. But the little epigraph that I'm starting with is a quote from Ira Gershwin's lyrics to Porgy and Bess. It ain't necessarily so. The things that you're liable to read in the Bible, I'm not making fun, that's how the lyrics go. The things that you're liable to read in the Bible, it ain't necessarily so. Whether we care, and this is Sunday school, okay. Whether we care to admit it or not, the mythical stories of the Bible are indelibly stamped upon the collective psyche of Western civilization. They provide the foundation of our laws, our morals, and the archetypes of our spiritual aspirations. They also run roughshod through our fears, our insecurities, even our nightmares. The volatile political environment of the Middle East, which for the last now 3/4 of a century has threatened to embroil the entire world in armed conflict, can be blamed, at least in part, upon the belligerents' belief that they are descended from one or another brother in a Bible story. In Sunday school, I was taught that the books of the Bible were authored by God Himself through the mediumship of anonymous men who He singled out and possessed to channel His words for later publication. A succession of miracles then ensured that the cosmic purity of these words would survive translation into all the major languages of the world. Even as a child, I found this scenario impossible to believe. I figured Bible stories were like those sweet lies grown-ups tell children, like Santa Claus. I was sure that sooner or later my elders would tell me the truth about God and the Bible and reveal a greater, more mature reality behind the make-believe. As I grew older, it became painfully obvious that these people were oblivious to any greater truths, and that some of them actually believed this nonsense. The fact that my Bible-thumping role models repeatedly used the Word of God to justify war, wife-beating, child abuse, racism, anti-Semitism, racial segregation, and a litany of other foul bigotries eventually compelled me to reject the God of Abraham, and eye all things biblical with bitter cynicism. I saw what Bible abuse can do to people, and I did not care to add my name to the Lamb's Book of Life, especially if it meant spending eternity with these dolts. Understandably, it was with a great deal of skepticism that I approached the study of Kabbalah, a spiritual discipline supposedly based upon, quote, the Holy Scriptures. But approach it I did. Perhaps because I was haunted by the childish dream that there might be a hidden wisdom buried in these crude and violent stories of desert bullies, lecherous goat herders, and murderous kings. At first I was very annoyed to learn that, like my well-intended but semi-conscious Sunday school teachers, that Cabalistic tradition holds that certain Bible texts are the result of divine inspiration, and that every word, every letter was constructed and positioned by illuminated sages or by God himself in an attempt to communicate ineffable secrets to future spiritual investigators. However, as I delve deeper into the primitive texts, and I'm the Behir and the Sefer Yetzirah, okay, I discovered what appeared to be elements of Egyptian, Persian, Vedic, Neoplatonic, and even Gnostic cosmology expressed as though they were scholarly elucidations of Bible verses. These commentaries espoused radical spiritual doctrines that could hardly be interpreted as Orthodox Judaism. Heresy has always been a serious matter for pious Jews. But still, there it was, right in front of me, a quasi-monotheistic rendition of the greatest mystical hits of the pagan world. Apparently, as long as Holy Scriptures were used as a springboard for discussion and exegesis, the founding fathers of Hebrew mysticism were free to soar to wondrous and technically heretical heights. When the members of the Yoruba tribe of West Central Africa were brought as slaves to the New World, they continued to worship the great pantheon of spiritual beings of their homeland. However, for their own safety, they disguised their orishas as saints and divine personages of Roman Catholicism. The result is visible today as Brazilian candomblé and other sects. Likewise, during the years the doctrines and disciplines of Kabbalah were forming, the Jews were also slaves, held captive in city-states positioned at the crossroads of the world and commerce of ideas, world of commerce and ideas. Instead of veiling their religion in the images of their captors, as the Yorubas would do centuries later, it appears that the Hebrew mystics did just the opposite. They embraced many of the new ideas and concepts of their masters and then masked them in the terminology and images of traditional Judaism. Cabalistic thought is profoundly different than that of rabbinical Judaism. Most striking is the doctrine that the God of the exoteric Bible stories, the possessive and vengeful poster child for abusive fathers, isn't really the supreme being at all. That honor goes to an inscrutable pre-existent existent negative totality called Ein Sof, a great zero, out of which emanates the one and subsequently the many. This concept parallels the creation scenario of Vedic and Buddhist cosmology, not to mention the Big Bang of modern physics. Although there are some who would disagree with me, I believe that the Kabbalah's relationship to the Bible and Judaism is essentially no more sectarian than the riddles of a Zen master's koan. It is completely irrelevant whether or not one believes there is any intrinsic holiness to the Holy Scriptures. Truth is truth. And if truth is universal enough to deserve its capital T, then it can be found everywhere and in everything. If I believe that a student of Zen can gain enlightenment by meditating upon the essence of horse manure until the Buddha nature reveals itself therein, then I'll have to concede that a student of Kabbalah can reach illumination by dissecting and analyzing words and phrases of the Bible. Both achieve the same end, but by radically different techniques. The Eastern mystics stills the body and mind, systematically stripping away the illusionary veils of sensations, desires, and ego until something snaps. The mind is transcended. Profound emptiness, I guess we could call it, is achieved. And suddenly the distinction between the perceiver and the perceived disappears. Conversely, the Cabalist bombards the minds, drawing parallels and correspondences between absolutely everything and absolutely everything else, until there is no anything else left. Eventually, something snaps. The mind is transcended. Profound fullness is achieved, and suddenly the distinction between the perceiver and the perceived disappears. In his masterpiece Liber Aleph, the book of Wisdom and Folly, Aleister Crowley describes the goal of this mental yoga as he addresses his magical son. Quote, "Do thou study most constantly, my son, in the art of the Holy Kabbalah. Know that herein the relations between numbers, though they be mighty in power and prodigal of knowledge, are but lesser things. For the work is to reduce all other conceptions to these of number, because thus thou wilt lay bare the very structure of thy mind, whose rule is necessity rather than prejudice. Not until the universe is thus laid naked before thee canst thou truly anatomize it. The tendencies of thy mind lie deeper far than any thought, for they are the conditions and the laws of thought, and it is these that thou must bring to naught. In order to reduce all unquote. In order to reduce all conceptions to those of number and lay bare the very structure of the mind, Cabalists utilize a number of techniques, including the employment of divine numerology known as gematria, and a shorthand system known as notarikon, and the cryptic exercises of Temura. In the space permitted, I will try to describe the basic principles of these techniques. And I make that attempt in one of my favorite books of all time, and probably one of the least known and the least sold. Please, you don't have to read it. Just buy it, okay? And if you buy it, leave me a note, and I'll send you that PDF of that wonderful chart. Anyway, that's Sunday school for today. I hope a lot of you are watching the Olympics, because it's one sort of, except for the stupid commercials, it's one of the positive things that are going on in the world today, and harkens back to a time when all wars were stopped in order to honor Zeus with games. Until tomorrow, Sunday school's dismissed. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.